Good evening. Today is Monday, December 10th. We're going to be part, the 9th, I'm sorry, 9th, 10th. Um, It's our third of fourth budget hearings. Tonight, we're going to go over the public service budget with Mr. Roman. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll have questions from council members and then from public participation. Mr. Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Cassie, I don't know if you want to put up on that overhead what I sent it to council earlier in the week. I did hand out a hard copy of the agenda. So just talking about 2024 highlights, I want to list the projects that were completed this year. The Wolf Creek Stream restoration, the project out back with the wetlands, the wastewater treatment plant, safety grit, and disinfection improvements. You're all well aware of that. The Corduroy and Wynn Road resurfacing, Coy Road widening and resurfacing. It went late because of Columbia Gas, but we just got that project finished. Obviously, the 2024 road program, Ember Drive reconstruction, the pickleball courts, the recreation restroom and concession stand, press box, and then also the Brown Road sanitary sewer. So it was a lot of work. Projects that are ongoing, we have the water treatment plant, concrete replacement. We have the water line work out front on Seaman and Wynn and Norden. The Otter Creek stream and floodplain restoration that's ongoing down at Seaman at Otter Creek there. And then we just started the pre-construction meeting for the new street garage facility. I guess part of the highlights is obviously we are competitive for grant funding. We have secured $9 million in grant funds for the next 2 years. And just for the fun of it, we looked at the past 5 years. We have obtained $19.4 million in grant funding, and that's from various state and federal agencies. Even designing in-house, when we look at the amount of projects that we do, if you were to take 10% of that construction value and look at how many we've designed, we've probably saved $2 million over the last 5 years. So just want to highlight that. On the 2025 goals, I think in terms of the general income tax, knowing that we're hurting in some areas, I think sometimes you take advantage of that as a planning year more than more construction dollars. And I'll talk about the individual projects here in a little bit, but I do want to increase our road improvement planning and design. I think in particular, I do want to go after more grants for the two-way and four-way stop intersections. Clearly, there were some Facebook comments on some of our intersections. We do meet quarterly with police, public service department, and go through accidents, and we try to look at where we can make improvements. One thing I've noticed with the county, they do put in a lot of roundabouts, and you hear a lot of negative comments regarding roundabouts. But I can tell you the difference when you improve an intersection to go to a roundabout, it's not the same as a four-way stop or a traffic light. A four-way stop, as well as a traffic light, there are certain warrants you have to meet to make that change. And you've heard me say it over and over, you need 5 or more correctable accidents to go from a two-way to a four-way stop intersection. And even with a traffic light, you need a lot of traffic volume to warrant that as well. But roundabouts, you're putting a yield in each direction. It's not the same warrants. And what I've noticed is the county, Lucas County, has been getting a lot of grant dollars for two-way stop intersections and making them roundabouts with very less accidents. And I've looked at how they do that. They basically get a small tip grant, and then they use that to leverage another grant, let's say from OPWC. And they've been very successful at it. I do want to look at things like that. I think, I know roundabouts, I think people get bothered with that. They can be expensive if you need to buy a right of way. They don't fit everywhere. If you have a home or a driveway in the way, that's not going to work. But I got to tell you, and sure, you'll have accidents, but they'll be less severe. And a good example of that is if, you have a traffic light and it's turning yellow and someone's going 45 miles. When they smoke another car, it's a bad accident. Roundabouts that doesn't happen at a roundabout. Now, you get it. You'll get the person who's drinking who does something stupid, and those are rare cases, but that happens. but they're less severe. And that is the idea. So I want us to get us over the hump, or at least consider that, and going after more grant dollars for things like that. In terms of other 2025 goals, certainly to proceed with our other CIP projects, drainage projects. This is another, I have always listed a lot of, you'll see here in a minute, our CIP listing. It's really a 3-year budget, and we try to get a third of it done every year. And I want to do more than that, obviously, but I think what we're behind on is drainage design. I think in a lot of cases, we think we can do this in-house, and we do a lot of design in-house, but I think some of these bigger drainage projects, I do think we need to hire out, and that's something more of what we want to do. On water distribution, Mary does a great job of trying to do these lead service replacements. We have about 200 left in the city. These are the lead lines that are in the public right-of-way that we know are there. And our goal is to get rid of them, because otherwise you're constantly testing the water for that, and get out of those regs if you just simply replace them. So that's our goal. We really want to double our effort from past years on that, and hopefully knock them out next year. On sanitary sewers and storm sewers, I think I've mentioned to you about a month ago when we talked about front foot assessments for increasing that for sanitary. I think our goal really is to double our sewer cleaning and lining sewer cleaning from what we've done in the past. And I think what I'd like to do is try to take some of the duties that our street department now does, and this is just for council's consideration. I think if we could dedicate more individuals for sanitary sewer cleaning, that is a dedicated revenue source that's not general fund. And that could definitely assist, the overall budget. One area to look at is we do mow the public right-of-way in a lot of areas. I think a lot of residents will mow their frontage just because they simply want it to look nice. But there's also a lot of properties where there is no home there, and the city has taken on the responsibility of mowing those areas. And I know in the past we've had these discussions, and I know with Navarre, we always wanted to look nice. And certainly we know we have city properties and overpasses and ditches that we know we have to maintain, and we'll continue to do that. But are there areas that aren't in any of those categories that we mow now? Should that be put on the responsibility of the property owners? And I think that if you did make that, and we're not the same as other cities, a lot of other cities don't have as much rural as us. So, we are like very township oriented. So I get it. But when you look at other cities, do they have a rule on that you got to cut the frontage? They don't, because most of their properties are very urban-like. It's not the same as us. And that's why they don't have a law like that on the books. But we do have sidewalks are required to be maintained by the property owners. Those sidewalks are in the public right-of-way. I'm not too sure why, cutting grass couldn't be the same. So I just wanted to bring it up as one area to look at. Certainly, we'll look at other things that we can do. But in lieu of hiring additional people just to do sanitary, that would be one benefit. Maybe 3 months out of the year, the grass cutting season, you could dedicate 2 to 3 more individuals from streets to work on sewers when otherwise they would have been mowing, again, the right of way. So anyways, I do want to proceed with the water treatment plant expansion, at least the final design. I'll talk more about that, but that is something where that's going to be a big dollar amount. And I think it's something that's going to be closer to 4 million. And I think something like that, we may want to get a planning loan from the EPA just to help fund it. That way you're not paying that all up front. And I wouldn't proceed with that design unless we got that loan. So just want to make that real clear. Obviously, we want to try to get as much grant funding as we can get. I wanted to talk a little bit about the lake. Joel had, in his opening on the budget, wanted to talk about work that a land swap that we were planning with Walleye Energy. One of the reasons for that land swap was to consider a public boat launch on the same intake or the same waterway that the Harborview Yacht Club sits on. The reason that waterway works so well is it's also the intake to a power plant. Sediment can't drop out as quickly. Therefore, you're not dredging as much. And we always thought it would be a good location. We always thought we could partner with the yacht club as well as Toledo Edison. They own some land there, but one big category was a land swap. Well, we have right of way that will never be built upon that would probably benefit the power plant. We were looking at swapping that land with their land along the intake. And when we talk about Oregon on the bay, what all do we have on the bay? You know, we have the boardwalk. We have the old boat launch, which doesn't work well because the water is very shallow and you would have to dredge it more. But I think it's something, and I did mention to the planners for the comprehensive master plan, I do think we need to think about more improvements along the lake. So the reason I bring it up is certainly going after grant dollars, and if you can get the land, even use the cost of land as a match or some other source of money, I think it's something we need to think about. On the, I'll go through the CIP budgets. I wanted to talk about the bigger equipment purchases. Really, the bulk of our purchases are really in street department and then in water distribution, the water plant. But with streets, we're requesting a new plow. This will be the first one in 4 years that we've asked for. I think we're replacing 2003 plow. It had 77,000 miles on it. Definitely has a lot of wear and tear. A salt dome roof, we definitely are due for that. Police building has a need of a boiler. Our east generator, we know it needs to be replaced, but we think we need a design by a professional before we do that. So we have the design for that in here. We have 2 zero-turn mowers. That's for the cemetery. And then we have a new pickup truck. They're Unit 25, which would go to the engineering department. We have an old police building or police vehicle that we would get rid of. And then in water distribution, they would like to get a new vacuum truck. It'd be their first, but they would split that cost with the water plant. Water plant certainly would use it. And then they're also getting a mini excavator, which again would help on the lead service replacements and give them redundancy to their other mini excavator. So I don't know if I heard something.
May I was going to answer. Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Reeves.
thank you. I'm not sure if this is the time to talk about something that he's already,
The end, but go ahead.
I mean, the end of the
His
whole
Yeah,
presentation.
just go ahead.
No, I can wait till the end of the
Okay,
presentation.
thank you.
Well, so if you refer to the bigger listing of projects, and I will go through just the main projects, and certainly any of you can call me anytime on any of these projects. We have them, we've always had them listed here, and again, happy to talk about anything. But road program, we originally requested $1 million, and then I think it got knocked down to about 300,000. I mean, we have a lot of road work to do, but I understand the budget. But also in this same 25 plan, we have the Navarre Avenue Safety Improvements Project. We've received a lot of grant dollars for Navarre Avenue, 5.6 million. But I just got word last week that we should get another grant from OPWC of around 600,000. So money that really was going towards the Navarre project could now go towards the annual road program. So instead of just 300,000, that can be increased by, I would say, at least 500,000. Nick shakes his head as no, but we'll try to get some more out of that. And but the idea is that we could do more in the road program than just 300,000. I have the sidewalk curb replacement program. I think one idea too is also to have streets possibly do more sidewalks. I think curbing, I did increase this. Curbing might be a little bit more difficult, but I think the street department could do sidewalks. And again, that's another savings of doing that in-house. Again, if you get more individuals dedicated for that, then that would help. So the bikeways, we've been planning for some time a bikeway connection between Navarre Avenue and Star. We still have to acquire some right-of-way, but that's a project that we would do next year. And then in the following year, we would do the Oregon Town Center bike path. And that would go from, let's just say, the Walmart traffic light, down through Cross Schmidlin on the old Dustin Paper Street, and then to Oregon Town Center. That project does have a grant, 400,000. It's not available till 26, so that's why we've moved the Star Navarre connector up front. So Really, if you go through the next couple pages, I know Wheeling Street, there was an area on Wheeling Street that's kind of a dead zone for lighting. Rodney had in there decorative. He wasn't too sure whether we'd want to make it a decorative lights or not. We do know there's a dark area there that we really should consider ordering in a couple street lights there. On the next page on drainage, we always have a lot of these same projects in here. A lot of them are annual maintenance projects, just spraying for invasive species in the wetland project areas. It's something you have to do to properly maintain them. You all are familiar with our Earth Day refuse collection, and we have our drainage regs where it's always water sampling, spill response. We also belong to TMCOG Stormwater Coalition. That's part of those fees for that. York Street Railroad Spur, this is a design that is done, but we still need to coordinate that work with the railroad. We also think it's a great candidate for an OPWC project, but we still have to work out that agreement with the railroad before we do that. Going through, if you go to the next page, the Ardmore Detention Pond, Coy Road, this is something where we talked about a regional detention area. There were comments on Facebook Saturday. I don't know why I made comments on it, but I thought I was bored, so I did. But people had asked, why didn't we pave Coy Road further south of Pickle? It's because we're planning a storm sewer project, and it's the Coy Road storm sewer. But that's what we're behind in. We're behind in these designs, and I really think we need to hire a consultant to expedite these projects. So that was the reason for that. Up on the lake, there are dike improvements that we want to make across. It's in a washout area across from the UT Research Center. And I have the design done, but we are struggling with ODNR and getting what's called a submerged land lease. And they are questioning our design. There is you'd have to see the aerial of it, but the area across from the UT Research Center, it's a U-shaped washout area, but at the very north end, there's an area where you can dock a boat. It's public land, it's City of Oregon land, but there's a resident at the end whose family has traditionally used it, but it's public property. And it serves no other public use. I know UT likes to use it to put in their test equipment, and we let them do that. But what I'm getting from ODNR is they're saying the only way to really do the dike improvements would be to fill in that boat launch area with stone, with rock. And I think it's something that I need to talk to the resident. I know it's not theirs, but at the same time, it's something they've been using. And I think it's something you want to be delicate about. At the same time, I think you want to talk to UT. If we ever wanted a canoe or kayak launch, or if there was some other benefit that the university could see out of it, I would be careful on just filling it in with rock. I would want to really, exhaust any other improvements we can make there before we did it. But it is something we need to do, and I just wanted to bring it up. It's just not easy, and it's difficult, obviously, to get permits from ODNR and Army Corps. So a lot of these other are drainage projects that we just need to get moving. Some of the newer ones, this Eastmoreland Boulevard, we noticed that there is a storm sewer that has a lot of leaks in the joints, as well as missing sections that it's functioning, but it's something we need to fix soon. And I think I've talked to all of you guys about Pickle Road between Woodville Road and Wheeling. It's currently a truck route where you can, if your vehicle's 80,000 pounds or less, you can use that section of Pickle. But I'm constantly seeing Michigan loaded trucks cheat and use Pickle Road. And I know that storm sewer is taking a beating. That bridge right by the cemetery is very old. We need to weight restrict Pickle. And I think we have Woodville and Wheeling to handle the Michigan loaded trucks. That's how they're permitted. And I think it's something we need to have a meeting on in the future. But the storm sewer definitely needs work, and there's no doubt that a lot of these joints need to be grouted, but that vibration from the trucks does not help. And I think just to preserve the paving of that road, Now AA Booze is there, Toledo Finery is there. We would give annual blanket permits to those entities that are having trucks come and go to their property. But this would be getting through trucks off of Pickle. It'd be to get them to use Woodville to Wheeling, okay? So I just wanted to bring that up. Water line projects, we have a lot of looping out at the wastewater. This is a project that wasn't done this year that we need to do next year. Athens also has a dead end water line that we'd like to connect to Coy. The lead service replacements, again, we have about 200 remaining. I think they said 230, it's really 200. Again, I mentioned the water line ongoing project. If there is a change order needed, we always like to put a line item for that the following year. So that's what that 100,000 is. The water treatment plant expansion, again, I mentioned the 4 million. We would only do that if we could get the loan. I think to front that money up front would be wrong when you got all the other water line projects to do. I think you'd try to get a planning loan for that. And then I mentioned the water treatment plant concrete replacement project is ongoing. But again, you try to put in change order money for that. Mentioned a couple weeks ago about increasing our sewer lining projects. We are planning another lining project. We will go after grant funding and an EPA loan for that. But the next area is the area, Eastmoreland Second Extension. It's really Randall, Belcourt, Bellhaven, and there's an alleyway off of Star that would be included for that. And it's something we would probably design next year, try to get loan funding for it, and then maybe even apply for OPWC. So, and then even on the last page, we have the street department facility. Again, additional things that would go with that: security, fencing, and gate. If there are any change orders from the building itself, utilities, and so on. A lot of these other services that were in there in the past, that just the annual cost of our GIS is in here and so on. But that's the bulk of our projects. Again, there's 45 projects. The projects that were highlighted in bold are the ones that are listed in the budget book. If you look at any one of my items and you see the fund number, you can just take that same fund number, go into the budget book and find it, and you'll see definitely more details on it. So, but that's all of our budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have done I'm glad, Mr. Roman, you brought up about the cutting of the right of ways out on the areas where it should be cut by the property owner. Just doing a little bit of simple math. I mean, we're spending $90,000 to $100,000 in wages and benefits on 2 to 3 people cutting the grass that should be cut by the property owner. Like you said, they could be that we're still paying that money, but it could be used at different projects that we need. Like for instance, we're coming up with new sewer rates and stuff like that, and that we're going to ask taxpayers for, to pay for the sewer, the new sewer projects and that. And then we're spending $190,000 to $100,000 that cuts people's grass or property owners' grass that they should be cutting their own. That doesn't count for the fuel, repair, time to travel to and from. That's just that $190,000 to $100,000 from April until the end of the grass cutting season. That's quite a bit of money. And then to trailer it, the new mowers that we just spent $20,000 to $40,000 for. It looks like to me we're paying well over $150,000 in taxpayer money that could be used someplace else. And then we're asking for people to, like I said, water rate. We had tax money money to the water rates. We're asking them for for the sewer projects that are going on at the wastewater treatment plant and the other plant. And I think it's to me, it's foolish. I cut my own right of way. And I bet just about everybody in here cuts their own right of way. I mean, and then to, be using, taxpayer money to cut right of ways out on the Route 2, any of the, branches and stuff like that. I think it's a waste of money. I think I don't know how we can, or what we can do to correct it. But, I mean, it's winter time now, nobody's cutting grass. But I would sure think that we would want to, let the, private citizens that own that right of way, even though it's our right of way, it's still part of theirs that they have till the 1st of April or something like that to figure out how they're gonna get it cut, or we can cut it. But it'll be assessed to them. I mean, that's my feeling on it. And I don't know what other council people think, but it's just, I think it's wasting taxpayer money.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Ackerman.
I've been watching this, this particular topic go around and around through council since Jerry Peach was here. It's gone on for the last couple decades. Some of you were here all these years. And so it comes up and it comes up and it comes up. And I do agree with Mr. Reeves to some extent because I've long been leery of the fact that the mowing, the horned larks nest in the right of ways. And so as far as for wildlife, I'd love to see a lot more of the roadside areas be a little more wild and accommodate those migratory birds. And so, yeah, I think we could probably come to, some kind of, but then again, that would mean, why mow Navarre? I mean, why would Navarre be different than, there's a farm field on Wheeling. Will you mow the right of way on Wheeling? Will you, I mean, but that's probably a whole nother committee meeting, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm sure I'd love to see more habitat. So
Yeah,
I
that,
could do that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ackerman, thank you. Mr. Reeves, I know that this will take further discussion. We're not going to resolve this tonight,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it's definitely something that we should have a committee hearing on and discuss that rather soon, because if we do want to implement something like that, we owe it to those landowners to prep and have time to prepare for a mowing season. So we do not want to throw this at them a week before they have to start mowing. So if it's something we want to bring up, let's bring it up soon.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
just gonna say, you already passed it. You already passed the requirement for them to, in the one, maintenance code.
But we have
No,
never,
that's not in the right of way.
no.
Oh, I
That's
thought it
private-
was.
That's private property. This would be the public right of way. and it's a little bit more.
Mr.
I think
Roman, could
that's
you
in there
please
too,
turn your,
Paul.
You could argue that. but
It's in there.
But it does include the right of way.
Mr.
Well,
Roman?
tonight is not the night to discuss this.
Yeah.
No, can you have him turn his
I
mic
think
on? I
it's in
can't
there.
hear you.
When we're talking, we need to make sure we have our
Sure
mics
it
on.
is.
All right, Mr. Reeves.
No, I just, I think that, I would assume that, I'm not sure who's in charge of building, maybe, probably Mr. Drake. Yeah, so if, we could have some kind of a committee meeting sooner or later to, discuss this and make sure that, we can get this taken care of. I think a lot of our citizens would be very happy as well with this, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sandler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I just wanted to just mention that I agree with you also. So I think it's definitely a good idea to look over. So I'm in agreement with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, is there any questions for Mr. Roman? We'll look into it.
Well, Mr.
Yes, Ms.
Chairman,
Ackerman.
in regards to the boat launch potential, I know I was having a conversation with Vern Minke today and just ran into him and we got talking about and I'll say, I know Kathy could probably help me because her daughter probably knows this word really well, seiche, where the water all gets pushed. Yeah, so we do have those, even though it's not so severe as where it completely blows out, but where you can't you can't launch a boat from certain areas because of how shallow it is. But I just hope you guys consider that when you go to plan for, because, we were talking about different, the state parking boats at Maumee Bay, that's deeper, they keep that cleared out, so where potentially could we do it? Because that launch on Bay Shore, you could walk out there last week, so
And Mr. Chairman, I forgot.
another committee to discuss.
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. And I just think that the Harborview Yacht Club is there because that intake is there.
If you can put
Is
it, are
it-
you talking about east?
Yeah,
east of
I'm
it?
so
Okay.
it's west, so
The
it's,
trade.
yeah, just southeast of where the yacht club is, but west of the power plant, but it's on their intake. Because of that cooling water draw, sediment can't drop out as quickly. And that's why the yacht club works very well there. And a boat launch would too. Now, that power plant closed would be another story, okay? But as long as it's open, it's an ideal location. And I think the yacht club would love to partner with us, so.
And again, that would be something that we're not going to resolve tonight at a budget hearing. Council, is there any questions for Mr. Roman? Mr. Roman, I had a question when you mentioned roundabouts at the beginning. Do you have intersections in mind, like Wynn and Corduroy type of intersection?
Yeah, well, I think that the idea, again, it could be a combination of, in a lot of these cases, you need 5 or more correctable accidents, and you're just not seeing it. It's always 3 to 4. It's never over 5. Yeah, Corduroy and Wynn could be, I think any of the Wynn intersections could go to a roundabout, but you also need land, so you gotta be careful. Pickle and Wynn, I thought about Londorf and Pickle. Again, the trend you see in the county, it's a lot of two-way stops going to a roundabout. That's what I noticed in particular. But like Brown and Coy, that would have to be a traffic light. There's not enough space for a roundabout.
I know over the last 5 years or so, the state was putting a lot of money towards roundabouts. The money's still available.
Yeah, I think it is, and whether there'll be more or not, it's hard to say, but it's still available.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Reeves?
just asking about the roundabouts, would, with Wynn being one of our truck routes, would that roundabout have to be so much more bigger than it would be for normal traffic? Would that, and I'm not saying one is needed at Wynn and Route 2, something like that would have to be huge, wouldn't it?
Well, something where you already have a traffic light and turn lanes, you wouldn't necessarily need it. I think the idea is though, if there's space available and there's no traffic light right now, it's an alternative to a traffic light. The traffic light is really not safety oriented. It's really
No.
it's just controlling traffic. That's all it's really doing. Roundabout really is a safety improvement. People don't want to believe that, but it is.
I know exactly what you mean, because I, just today, if I'd have turned when the arrow went, I would have got, T-bone big time. It is, I just don't understand why people can't follow directions. It's, at any rate. Thank
Mr.
you.
Reeves. And then I have something with your CIP budget. The water distribution and water treatment plant, you're looking for a mini excavator and a new vacuum truck. Is that a vacuum tanker or an actual 3,000 gallon vacuum truck? Or are you just looking for the trailer, the tanker trailer? A vacuum truck, okay. And then also a mini excavator. How many times do we use that? And I'm only looking at if we don't buy it this year, is that more money that we could use for road and sewer projects versus the money's gonna come out of water funds and sewer funds for that
Yeah,
purchase, right?
it's a good question to make a point. No, that money couldn't be used on general fund. It's meant for water and sewer. But the thing about the current mini excavator, there are times it breaks down and you don't have that redundancy. The idea is to have 2 crews going for these lead services, and there's a lot of projects. So it's for water distribution, they use it quite a bit. So yeah, it's strictly water revenue that would pay for it.
Are we under any time restriction to replace those lead service lines?
You're not, but after 2027, the the testing of all lead services that they're more strict. There's more frequent testing and so on, and there's a cost to that. So if you can simply just get rid of the reds, so we're all
If you eliminate them, there's no
everything
need
is
for testing.
safe. It's just that you don't have to test as much if you get rid of it.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Again, council, is there any more questions? Mr.
I
Horniak?
have one question. I'm going to go back to roundabouts because Mr. Roman and I have talked about this. If anybody didn't notice, he looked down with a smile when he started talking about those. I'm not a huge fan because I don't believe that people learned how to drive on roundabouts, so they don't know how to drive them any better. But that said, if there's a safety implement to this, I certainly think it's worth considering. My question is this: out of just say the handful of ones that would pop at the top of your head as where these would make sense, okay, for traffic flow and for safety purposes, are there any that exist as they are today where we would not have to require or acquire additional land or easements in order to have them? Or would we have to go into
Yeah.
acquiring land?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you would have to acquire land to do a roundabout at our current intersection areas, any of them. But the idea is there a home close by? Is there space there? You look at Wynn and Pickle.
Yeah.
Dunberger
That's the
Post,
one that my head goes to. and I'm thinking,
you
how
might
do
have
you
more
accomplish
space
that?
there. Right, you may have more space there. But I mentioned Brown and Coy. Oh, very tight, you do want to offset the roundabout to one corner or one side. Because that calms the traffic flow as well. But it's more ideal if there's a big empty lot at one of the corners versus not. So that's the difference. Yeah, I would think you'd have to acquire right away.
Okay. Very good. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Roman.
Mr. Horniak. And then you did mention something about Wheeling Road lighting. What is the requirement on lighting? And I particularly think about the plaza where BW3's is at, where Dairy Queen's gonna be going in, where you can't even see the driveway into that. Is that the requirement of the developer, or is that incumbent upon the city for a light for safe passage into that?
Yeah, it's almost similar to how and the mayor can help on this, I think, how we've assessed for sidewalks as well. You can petition for streetlights, or the city or council can order an improvement in if, you show that it's warranted. And I think, I know the property owner there, it brings it up, but he never petitions for it. He'd rather have us order it in. So, I think on Navarre and those dark spots, this council could order that in. And I know the owner of the B-Dub site probably would not object to that. But on Wheeling Street, those properties have been assessed, and it's possible they all were assessed, but yet there's an area where it's still dark. So the question is, can you assess them again, or is it something the city funds, the installation of, let's say, 2 lights, Me and Rodney brought that to my attention. I thought, well, it might be difficult to assess that, but normally we assess it, people can petition it, or we can order it in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
We've spoke quite a bit about that BW3 complex and that it is dark. And we will assume that the Dairy Queen Grill and Chill will be lit like a Christmas tree, but only when they're open. So it's going to help. But I know Sean pretty well, and I tried to encourage him, but he would let somebody else light it at their expense for him.
I could imagine.
They're nice guys.
Now, do you have any accident data or traffic data? Do we have problems coming in and out of that parking lot?
I don't think so.
I don't know if Ryan, if you would have any.
Yeah,
off
so
the top.
Mr. Chair, the last time that we looked at that particular intersection, the majority of our crashes were during daytime hours and not at nighttime hours. So when Brooke and I went over all of that data, the majority of the crashes were occurring during daytime hours.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about lights getting in their eyes.
Right.
Yeah, and there's less traffic usually during the nighttime hours. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council, is there any further questions? Oh, I thought Mrs. Ackerman was pressing her mic. I'll hand it over. Well, actually, before you, Nick, Christine, you want to come up and you have a couple questions? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Christine Gladio, 512 South Wallendorf. Just a few comments and a reminder, my background is an accountant. I'm a chief financial officer. I love balance sheets. And so that's the first item that I look at is a debt on a company. And then I compared the debt that Oregon has to the surrounding areas. And it kind of shocked me and alarmed me. Currently, our debt is 105 million, and this is based off 2023. And a third of that is pension, and then the rest is just debt that we've taken on. And then in this budget is proposed to take on additional 12.2 million. I don't disagree, those are those water, it's low interest loans. I know we need to do it. Nick is including that as revenue, so that's unique. I typically wouldn't put revenue, the 9 million is revenue, but if that's how cities do it, then that's fine. But just as comparison, Maumee has 60 million, Perrysburg has 53 million, and Sylvania has 32 million. And then when you look at all the line items, which I went to every single line item and looked at all of the increases proposed, this is not sustainable. This spending is not sustainable. These increases are beyond. And I just would, and I'm sorry I missed the first two. I was out of town, one for business, one for visiting my daughter, but I really encourage, and if anyone wants me to send this, I put notes and comments, listed every item. I would encourage you to challenge the department heads to revisit that because those increases, I don't think this is putting all that debt, all that expense on our grandchildren and their grandchildren. So I'm just asking you to be fiscal stewards, take some time, go through it and pause and review it. And if I can, Nick, I have a few questions. I'll just email you because it could just be, and kudos to the police for anytime you guys get a grant, that's amazing. Is that grant for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, the 900,000?
So it is for the specific items that we put in there.
So it's equal to the expense?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's how, okay, great. So that's all the comments I had. I could go through and I can share it with Nick, some of my comments, but I'm very concerned with the debt that we're taking on. We took on 15 million the prior years with the Firehouse, Town Center, Kmart. Now we're adding on an additional 12.2 million. That's a lot of debt in just 3 years. That's all I had.
Christine,
Thank
would
you.
you be willing to forward that to city
yeah.
council and then
Is-
get it to the administration, then council can review it?
Yeah, is it just one email, citycouncil?
You can just send it to one, you can send it to Nick and we can get it.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it because, I do this for fun. Okay.
Oh, great.
Right.
But yeah, if you could forward it
It's
to
accountant
Nick and he
fun.
can distribute it to the council members that reach out to Nick.
And Nick, I really do not like that miscellaneous operating costs that everyone seems to have put $4,000 to $10,000 in their budget. And when you look, and that account never really existed in 2022 or 2023. Suddenly, everyone added it to their budget. The account existed, but the budget didn't exist. And then in 2024, everyone put money in there, and now in 2025, they've almost doubled it or equaled what they put in the prior year. So I'll just send those to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate you coming. Thank you. Mr. Roman?
So as we prepare for this budget, we will be bringing forward legislation next week to hopefully pass the budget. One of the major things that I think it hasn't been talked about is items that council members would like to be taken out or added in. So I was hoping we could have some discourse on any items that we believe should be taken out.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council members, over the last 3 meetings, we've discussed all the departments within the city, except I don't know if we've really touched the administrative budget. I know that we got some miscellaneous things in there, but council members, do you have anything that you feel that should be discussed to add or look to remove from the budget?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Towner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a few items that recommendations, suggestions, requests. One, well, actually two that I'm looking at, these are actually from the rec. The spirit wall for 20,000 and Christmas decorations for 8. I just think right now, as we're talking about that and everything else here, that it's important that we're looking and prioritizing needs over wants. And things that are gonna be more beneficial to us. And I just don't see those two items as being absolutely 100% financially necessary this year. And something that we could maybe put off into the future. And with that being said, some of those funds could be used towards, like I wanted to mention, I agree with Councilman Reeves also on the mini splits, for example, that we took out. I think that, that and another one here, such as a roof replacement at North Oregon Cemetery, are more of a need than those two items. So that would be one suggestion of mine. And I did have one other question on a way to perhaps maybe do our spirit wall and not have to increase our cost or have cost. During Boom Fest, there were some murals that were painted. I believe there were 3. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there were 3. And I was curious if are those murals that we paid for? And if so, where are they?
I have them.
You have them?
Yeah.
Could we use those for the spirit
Yeah.
wall?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
There was 4 of them, but
4?
one
Okay.
of them was the deal was that the producer of the one with the eyeglasses on,
Yeah,
we didn't own that one.
okay,
The other 3 we do.
okay. Yeah, if we could use that for the spirit wall, that would be great. That would be just some suggestions of mine.
I'm looking for a place to put them.
There we go.
I don't
We
want
have
them
it.
in my trailer anymore.
Oh, we have a solution. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Towner. Council members, anything further that you want to discuss or anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Drake.
I would like to see, I know a lot of these items are important, but some of the neighborhoods, the older ones, the roads in there are getting horrible to drive on. I mean, they're pathetic. And I remember I was told by a mayor years ago, one thing you don't want to get behind is the roads, because it's like not going to the dentist for 30 years and then you show up and you got cracked teeth and gingivitis all over your mouth, and it's hard to get rid of. And I know you guys, Paul's crew goes through and looks, but I mean, and I'm not complaining about my road, because heaven forbid, if I complain about Holly Drive, oh, he's just complaining because he lives here. And I tell the neighbors, show up to a meeting. I just would like to see more of the roads paved, like Coy Road. Now that that's done, I mean, it's awesome. It's like driving in Texas. There ain't a bump on the road. So I would just like to see more roads added that need fixed or that are
Mr.
cold patch don't.
The only way to add those is to probably remove stuff out of the budget
Yep,
too.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
So-
Mr.
so-
Rowan.
So that is something that we are looking at. So it's gonna depend on what our fund ends in 260. That's typically the fund that we use to do the road program. So with the increase on the garbage, that took a hit out of it. And then so some of the other items in there, we pulled the whole thing for right now out of 260. We're hoping that with the end of the year balances, we can add some of that back in there next year. And I've talked with Paul and Rodney about it. And when we go to bid it out, we will bid with alternates and hopefully come back with an appropriation next year to add more into the road program.
And,
But it is
and,
certainly being discussed, but we need to make sure that we have the funds.
and do remember that everything that gets listed in our budget isn't necessarily spent either. It's budgeted. If we get to it or we have the funds, then we execute or move forward with that. So just because it's written in the budget doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to make that expenditure this year.
And that's one of the issues with Fund 260 is that a lot of the items in there don't get spent and they carry over for years and years and years. And with doing the street garage this year for the first time, or finally after 7 years, took a big portion of what those reserves were in that 260 fund. So, yeah, like I said, if, depending on what we have left over, we would like to add. 500 might be a stretch, but I'm hoping 300 to 400,000 back in to the road program.
And then also, when these expenditures come forward, we still, as council, need to take action and vote those expenditures forward. So I know we discuss it now, but as they come up, we'll have another time to discuss and take action on removing those from the budget at that time also. Council, anything further?
Hi,
Mr. Horniak.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, two items, if I may. One, in years past, as we've gone through the budget process, it sounds like there's some suggestions for puts and takes with this budget before it gets finalized and voted. Talking about the mowing of the easements, potentially the roof, adding that in, the spirit wall, some of that. We've usually had for lack of a better term, I'll call it options list, where we've had some things that these are priorities to add or remove depending on the condition of funds throughout the year. Is that something that we're going to do or have in this year as well? For example, we did I believe it was the press box was, hey, we'd love to do it if funding becomes available. It did. We were able to move forward with that, but we had that list of priorities. Are we going to develop something like that?
So, Mr. Chair, that would be the items that we had removed. That would be on the last slide of Joel's presentation.
Okay.
Those would be all the items that we obviously wanted in the budget. We just didn't feel like we were able to. And we could come back and take a look at those and put those back in next year, depending on where the fund's at.
Okay, so with the items even suggested this evening or in one-on-one conversations, those all become part of that list.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. The other one to bring up, and I know there's a ton of moving parts to this, so it's difficult for us to probably get real in depth on this. But obviously we've had an appeal from our senior center as far as for funding. I know they're working with the AOA and some other things, and there's some other donors that are stepping up. Obviously our senior community is one that I think we all support taking care of, but it doesn't feel free. I would like to see that as an area we're looking at as well. Because certainly that programming and that support is out there. We understand how the vote went. I respect that entirely. But if there's, I'll say, a patch year until they go back and figure that out or work with the AOA, I don't know how close or where we're at or what we know about that at this stage of the game. But certainly that's something that I, as a council person, would certainly support.
Mr. Mazer.
I do have a update on that. The board is meeting tomorrow. So, and that what the request went out to the Area Office on Aging. There are some donations that are coming in, and one very generous donation that appears to be on its way will seek to match donations from others. So, a philanthropist that's from the area. And we've been in discussions with the Area Office on Aging also. So there really isn't a place for us to budget anything for the senior center at the moment until we get some answers from all of these other sources, I would say. So I don't have a good answer on what we can provide, other than we do have the $50,000 in the budget to pay for utility services and maintenance on the building.
Okay, and as I said, I know there's still a lot of moving parts that have not been settled or set in for that, but certainly I do believe that that's something for us as a city to consider. Do you know when their board meeting is tomorrow?
3 o'clock.
3 p.m. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Council, if there's isn't anything further, then we'll close the meeting at 6:55. Take 5 minutes before we have our regular council meeting. The meeting will be adjourned.